Hello, everybody. Yesterday, during my session for the 14th lecture series, I have given a brief idea of the National Pension Trust. So, if you see my 14th lecture series, then you'll get an idea regarding how the NPS has been established, how the NPS is being operated, what is the concept of a subscriber, what kind of agencies who actually look after the NPS, that is the National Pension System, and why pension is very important for all of us during the age of retirement or attaining the age of 60 years, and even for the youngsters. I've a little bit explained. Now I'll go a little bit deep into that how you'll get an entry into the NPS system, that is a national pension system, being not only being a central government employee or a state government employee of other state governments, but also an individual. Maybe you may be a student, you may be a self-employed person, you may be a professional, you may be a service holder of any private enterprise who does not have got an MPS. Maybe they have got an EPF or any other mode of investment in their structure, pay structure. So this is a kind of a avenue which is available to all kind of citizens in this country. And the entry level is actually a citizen of India aged between 18 to 70 years can apply for a pran number. That is, I have already explained in my 14th lecture series. That is, the pran is called permanent retirement account number. It's called PRAN. And there is also an application in the KYC submission. And KYC is the know your customer submission. We all know that is actually happens with the bank and the financial institutions before opening any kind of account. And you have to, then you'll be onboarding through the online or the physical mode. There is also a physical mode application that is accepted at the POP. I've explained, point of presence. It might be any bank or financial institutions who are offering the NPS. Now, next area is the accumulation. What is an accumulation? That is, it's a regular contribution by the self and or by the employer. For example, if you are working with any employer for any central government organization or state government organization, they might contribute their part of their contribution to your wealth on monthly basis. And similarly, you will also contribute as an employee into that particular fund of the wealth, and that will accumulation. For example, if you are not in any kind of service or employment, then the what will be the contribution? The contribution will be the self contribution. That is the contribution that you make from yourself. And actually, these kind of wealth which are being accumulated in the form of a pool of funds are the investment which are actually managed by professional fund managers or the professional pension funds. And the valuations are basically on the basis of NAV, which is called net asset value. Now I will explain what is NAV. Then there is also an option like exit. So we got the entry, we got the accumulation or contribution, and we got the exit. There is a withdrawal. How we are going to make an exit from this fund? Normally at 60 years or the age of retirement is the age where there is an opportunity for an exit. Minimum 40% of annuity purchase and maximum 60% lump sum. Now premature with 80% annuity purchase and 20% lump sum. And if it is in premature, for example, you are exiting early from the system, then you will got an opportunity for 80% annuity purchase and 20% lump sum of the total accumulated fund in your account. Then we got a partial withdrawal of 25%, that is after 3 years with the condition. Now we need to also understand actually there are two types of account in this NPS. One is a tier 1, another is a tier 2. Now tier 1 is actually a pension account, and tier 2 is an optional account with active tier 1. Means if you have a tier 1, then tier 2 is available. Tier 2 cannot be given solely. Tier 1 is the main account, is a pension account, and because of the objective is to provide the pension to the individual or the subscriber. It is not mean that you will enter into this kind of into this kind of fund and you will accumulate the wealth and exit at your own. The objective of this fund is to provide the pension at the time of your attainment of 60 years of age, or at the time of retirement. So tier 1 account is actually tax benefits are available and restrictions on withdrawal Minimum contribution should be must be 500, and the minimum contribution per year is 1000, and there are no limits on the contribution. What is happening with the tier 2 account? Tier 2 account, I have already mentioned, this is an optional account with active tier 1. No tax benefit are given for this tier 2 account, and there is an unrestricted withdrawal. Means there is no the restriction of the withdrawal which is being placed for the tier 1. The tier 2 is an exception. So minimum contribution to open a tier 2 account is 1000 rupees, and minimum contribution a subscriber should make in the tier 2 account is 250 rupees, and there are no limits to the contribution. Like in tier 1 we have got minimum contribution per year 1000 rupees, but in tier 2 we have got 250 rupees. Now the very important concept of the contribution which is to be made by the employee and the employer, if you are in service or employment. If you're service or in employment, then the equal contribution to be made by the employee and the employee. It means if you are giving a 10% contribution, self contribution from the employee side, then the employer will also contribute the equal contribution. Unequal contribution by the employer and the employee. There may be an unequal contribution, and contribution from either the employee or the employer. So there are three options which is given in the NPS system. This it means that the employee can give a contribution, employer can give an equal contribution. Yeah, there may be a contribution by the employer and the employee, but it is an unequal contribution. For example, 10% you are providing, but 14% is being provided by your employer, and it is happening. It is happening in central government organizations. Those who are central government employees, they actually contribute 10% of their contribution, and the government, central government, contributes 14% of the contribution. And it might also happen that the contribution from either of the side will happen. Either employer will the provide, or employee will provide, or employee will provide, or employee will not provide. So it is the either options which has been given. And it is very important to understand in NPS there are actually some agencies actually they work. They are called CRA, Central Record Keeping Agencies. CRA actually manages all the subscribers account. They will be given a plan number, and it will be identified with the plan number itself. So all kind of contributions, all kind of withdrawals, all kind of fund change, scheme change will be managed by CRA. And this CRA is actually, there are three agencies of CRA which has been identified by the PFRD, the main apex body, that is Pension Fund Regulatory Development Authority. The three CRAs are actually NSDL, National Securities Depositories Limited. Another one is a K Fintech, another one is a CAMS. These are the three agencies which actually manage these funds. And which are the pension fund which have been given the options to the subscriber? There is an SBI Pension Fund Limited, there is an LIC Pension Fund Limited, there is UTI Retirement Solutions Limited, ICICI Prudential Pension Fund Management Company Limited, there is also Kotak Mahindra Pension Fund Limited, HDFC Pension Fund Limited, and Birla Sun Life Pension Management Limited. So these are the kinds of pension funds which are available. Now there are asset-wise allocation given to this investment that we make or the contribution. One is an active choice, another one is an auto choice. In active choice, there are actually four classes of assets classification. Number one is the asset E, which is called equity, where you can contribute maximum 75% of your contribution. Means if you are contributing 1000 rupees, then 75% will go into the asset E, that is equity. Then we have got asset C, which is called corporate bonds. Maximum 100% you can select in active choice. Then we got asset G, it's called government securities, maximum 100%. And there is asset A, which is called alternate assets, which is where the minimum contribution, where the maximum contribution will be 5%. But when you talk about the auto choice, it is the active choice. There is also another option called auto choice. Auto choice actually has got three kind of life cycle funds. One is an aggressive life cycle fund, which is called LC75. We have got moderate life cycle fund, which is called LC50 by default. Another one is a conservative life cycle fund, which is called LC25. So the kind of auto choice or the asset allocation which actually happens, they are in an age bracket. For example, you cannot expose the equity contribution of an individual who is of on the higher age bracket. Asset equity or the equity contribution should only be benefited for those individuals who are at the young age. It means that up to 35 years of age, for me, I'm telling, for example, up to 35 years of age, aggressive life cycle fund, the asset classification, which is will be in the percentage, equity will be maximum 75%, and in the C, that is the corporate, it can be of 10%, and government securities can be 15%. Now in the moderate life cycle fund, it can be 50, 30, or 20, and in the conservative life cycle, it can be 25, 45, and the 30. But if you see, if the age of entry is 55 years, then obviously the risk will be a little bit high, because if you are young, then the risk will be a little bit low, because you have a large you have a long life to earn a huge amount of money. But at the age of 55, obviously you are depleting, means you will be getting the less opportunities of earning. So what happens is this, that there is an equity composition of 15%, 10% asset class which is for the corporate securities, and the 75% will go for the government securities. And then similarly for the it is for the aggressive life cycle, we have got moderate life cycle, we have got conservative life cycle. Now it is very important to understand what is the tax benefit which is actually being given to the subscribers. That is, the own contributions are eligible for tax deduction under section CCD1 up to 10% of basic plus DA, or up to 20% of gross income of the self-employed, with an overall ceiling of 1.5 lakh, which is available under the old scheme under section 80 CCE. Number one. Number two is that additional deduction which is being allowed up to 50,000 under sections 80 CCD 1B, and exclusively which are available under the NPS. These are only under the NPS. There is no other options which is being given to any scheme or any investment, only NPS. Then we come to amount utilized for the purchase of annuity on exit. Minimum 40% mandatory is not treated as income, and goods and services currently at 1.8% not applicable on annuity purchase, and there is a maximum 60% of the total corpus, means the amount that we accumulate in the form of corpus at the time of exit is not treated as income. It is not treated as income, and the partial withdrawal are tax exempt. For example, if you are making any partial withdrawal, the withdrawal before the age of retirement of 60, if any partial withdrawal, for example, for sickness purpose, for medical purpose, for educational purpose of children, for marriage purpose, so in that case what happens, there is a partial withdrawal will be exempted. So the contribution actually made by the employee is always 10% of the basic plus DA. Employee gets a tax deduction under section 80 CCD 2 of the IT. I end by saying that there are many areas of to understand in these NPS areas. You just go through some of the documents which has been given by PFRDA and various fund agencies like SBI Fund, or I've just mentioned Build a Life Insurance Fund. These are pension funds. You'll find lots of avenues where the areas I'm going to choose, so the active choice or auto choice. You need to understand a little bit of, if there is any difficulty, obviously I'm going live somewhere from now, so where we will have an introduction regarding the taxes and the NPS and everything. Then we will be able to understand with an example that how this NPS is very big and beneficial for all of us in a longer term. See, investment is not a speculation. Investment is meant for investment, means you are putting your hard-earned money for a longer period, for longer tenure of your life. It is not mean that you invest in a fund, particular fund, and you get the return immediately within 3 months or 2 months or 1 month or the 15 days. It does not happen like that. You have to wait for the return, and in a longer term the tenure, you are going to get the reward. Thank you very much for having your time with me regarding this NPS discussion. I think that if any query comes up, you can send through me my email, my the WhatsApp, or in my LinkedIn profile. Thank you very much for joining.